Imagine holding a jagged, pulsing rock that instantly grants you the raw power to just shatter a mountain.
Oh, yeah.
But the catch is, the second you draw on that power, the rock starts to fuse with your flesh. It, like, slowly overwrites your nervous system with crystallized corruption until your humanity is completely gone.
Right. It's a terrifying concept.
It really is. And that is the exact bargain that every survivor makes every single day in the world of Wraeclast.
It's basically the ultimate poison chalice. I mean, if you don't grasp the mechanics of that specific bargain, literally nothing else in this universe is going to make sense.
Exactly. So welcome to our latest deep dive. Today we're taking a highly specialized, hyper-focused journey into the lore of Wraeclast to prep you for the upcoming sequel, Path of Exile 2.
Yeah, we are absolutely skipping the basic wiki summaries today.
We're bypassing all that introductory stuff because, let's be real, you already know this is a brutal, grim, dark setting. Our mission today is to extract the absolute essentials. We're talking the underlying mechanics of the magic, the cyclical history of these incredibly arrogant empires, and the cosmic mistakes that shaped the entire continent.
And what's truly compelling here, I think, isn't just knowing the sequence of events. It's understanding the causality.
Right, the why.
Exactly. Because when you originally arrived in Wraeclast as an exile, you weren't just some prisoner being tossed away by the authorities of Oriath. You were fuel.
Fuel. I love looking at it through that lens.
Yeah, the people who banish you were deliberately feeding a very specific, ancient, and frankly, dark engine that operates beneath the surface of the continent.
So the whole penal colony thing was basically a geopolitical cover story.
Basically, yeah.
But before we get into who was running that engine and why they needed you, we have to talk about the fuel itself. We need to dissect the magic system because that is the axis upon which this entire world spins.
Thaumaturgy.
Thaumaturgy, exactly. And in Wraeclast, thaumaturgy is not ethereal. You don't, wave a wand and mumble a little incantation.
No, not at all.
Magic here is entirely physical.
Yeah, it revolves completely around what they call virtue gems. These are coveted, physical slags of magical rock, and every single one of these gems originates from deep within Mount Veruso.
The great Titan mountain right at the heart of the continent.
Right. They embody all thaumaturgy. Everything comes from there.
But, calling them gems almost makes them sound pretty, like jewelry or something.
Yeah, they're definitely not jewelry.
No, they're not. Think of a virtue gem less like a battery and more like a parasitic hard drive. When a user taps into one, it downloads immense reality-bending power, like the ability to conjure fire or grant superhuman strength.
But the horrifying trade-off
is that these gems are theorized to be literal crystallized corruption.
Right.
They feed directly off the willpower of whoever is using them.
Which brings up the fundamental tension of the entire setting. If the primary tool for your survival is a parasitic rock that slowly corrupts your biology, how do you harness it without destroying yourself?
Right. That's the million-dollar question.
And the history of Wraeclast is essentially a masterclass in getting that equation terribly catastrophically wrong.
Oh, completely.
The ancients didn't just carry these gems in their pockets. They surgically implanted them directly into their bodies.
And created what the texts called gemlings. Just the concept of a gemling makes my skin crawl.
It's pure body horror.
It is. We aren't talking about a magical tattoo here. We are talking about flaying open the flesh, taking a radioactive parasitic rock, and embedding it into your spinal cord or your heart.
You're literally plugging a corrupting hard drive directly into your central nervous system.
And the physical and psychological transformations were agonizing, right?
Oh, yeah. The body initially fights the intrusion, but eventually, the crystallized willpower subsumes the host. The host becomes physically addicted to the thaumaturgical energy.
Like a drug.
Exactly. The gem demands to be used, and the human being simply becomes a vessel for the corruption. So naturally, on a societal level, this led to absolute ruin.
Right.
But this is where modern inhabitants evolved. They found a crucial loophole to survive.
Yeah, because you look at the exiles running around Wraeclast today, and they aren't, slicing their chests open to put rocks in there.
Thankfully, no.
They figured out that instead of putting the gems into their flesh, they could slot them into the sockets of their weapons, their armor, and their gear.
The equipment acts as a biological buffer. The metal and leather of your armor absorb the invasive corruption, but you still get to channel the immense power.
So you can swing a sword with impossible force without your nervous system just crystallizing on the spot.
It's a survival cheat code. And this mechanic of weapon slotting, It remains the primary way you're going to survive the horrors of the continent in the upcoming sequel.
But here is what I don't understand, and I just have to stop you here for a second.
Sure.
If history has definitively proven that embedding these rocks into human flesh leads to agonizing mutation and civilizational collapse, who on earth was arrogant enough to look at a glowing rock of corruption and think, yes, I should put that in my spine in the first place?
Well, to answer that, we have to look at the Vaal Empire. They were the absolute pinnacle of hubris.
Oh, yeah.
They're the most ancient of the advanced civilizations on the continent, and initially their experimentation with virtue gems gave them unrivaled technological superiority. I mean, they built high-functioning constructs, autonomous machines, unbelievable architecture that basically defied the laws of physics.
But the technology wasn't enough. It never is it?
No, human nature always pushes it too far.
Right, you have this massive empire, but the sources point the finger squarely at their final ruler, Queen Azmeri. She had all the wealth and power in the world, but she was absolutely terrified of aging. She wanted total immortality.
So she directs her head thaumaturgist, a savant named Doriani, to basically push the virtue gems past their limits.
And Doriani's experiments were just unprecedented in their recklessness. He was trying to rewrite the fundamental laws of life and death using pure corruption.
Yeah, and the result was a cataclysmic event so violent and so sudden that it effectively erased the Vaal Empire from the face of Wraeclast.
Just gone.
Millions of people, an entire advanced society, wiped out in a single thaumaturgical flash.
What I found a truly wild detail in the lore regarding this cataclysm, there are these entities of pure chaos in this universe, beings who operate outside normal time, right?
Yes, the ultimatum and scourge entities, basically.
Yeah, and they suggest that the Vaal apocalypse wasn't just a horrific accident. They imply it might have actually been a preventative measure.
Right, the theory is that Doriani was on the verge of tapping into something so fundamentally destructive that the resulting cataclysm, as total and awful as it was, actually saved the wider world from a much worse fate.
I just struggle to wrap my head around that. Like, what could possibly be worse than turning your entire populace into ash and twisted nightmares?
I know, it's hard to imagine.
I mean, I guess we'll find out, because Path of Exile 2 is supposedly going to feature the decrepit ruins of the Vaal heavily in its third act. But here is the ultimate dark comedy of Wraeclast. Humanity has a severe memory problem.
Oh, incredibly so.
They look at the smoking crater of the Vaal Empire, think, you know what, I bet we could do that better.
Right. Enter the Eternal Empire. They were descendants of the native Azmeri who settled the mainland. They conquered the territory, centralized their power, and boldly decided to establish their capital, Sarn, directly on top of the old Vaal capital.
Directly on top of it.
Literally on the ruins. And they became a direct extension of the Vaal's obsession with virtue gems.
It's the exact same playbook. They even produced their own twisted version of Doriani. The Eternals had a head thaumaturgist named Malachai. And Malachai didn't just dabble in gemling experimentation. He fully industrialized the horror.
He took the practice of surgically implanting gems and made it the foundation of the state military. He created entire gemling legions.
It was the mass production of corruption. Under Emperor Veruso, the Eternal Empire fielded armies of mutated, gem-powered super soldiers. Normal, unaugmented humans essentially became an underclass.
Yeah, the societal friction was immense. I mean, when your entire political and military structure is built on institutionalized hubris and body horror, a breaking point is inevitable.
And that breaking point was the Purity Rebellion.
Exactly. Led by High Templar Vaal.
And Vaal's whole political platform was actually entirely reasonable given the circumstances. His rebellion was built on a really simple premise. We have to stop putting magic corruption rocks into our soldiers.
Yeah, it's a pretty sound platform.
Vaal wanted to wipe the slate clean. No more thaumaturgy, no more gemlings. He wanted a strict return to humanity and a monotheistic religion.
It was a deeply human reaction to a completely inhuman society. And Vaal actually wins. The rebellion succeeds. He overthrows Kaidas and ascends to become Emperor Vaal. He is poised to purge thaumaturgy from the continent forever.
But this is where the political intrigue just transforms into a massive cosmic disaster. Because Malachai, the man who literally invented the Gemling legions, survives the coup.
Right.
And he approaches the newly crowned Emperor Vaal with an offer.
And Vaal actually listens to him, which is wild. The guy who just led a bloody war against magic decides to take a meeting with the head magic scientist.
Well, Malachai was a master manipulator. He promised Vaal that he had engineered a permanent solution. He claimed he could build a device to definitively sever humanity's connection to thaumaturgy, fulfilling the core promise of the Purity Rebellion.
So Vaal, who is desperate to secure his new utopia, agrees. He gives Malachai the resources he needs.
Which sets the stage for the ultimate betrayal. Malachai didn't build a severing device. He tapped into a mysterious entity slumbering beneath the mountains known as the Beast.
The Beast, yeah.
And instead of turning off the magic, Malachai inverted the flow. He unleashed a second cataclysm, spewing raw, unfiltered nightmare across the continent. It violently ended the Eternal Empire, slaughtered the bulk of the population, and permanently warped the land itself.
So the Emperor, who campaigned on eradicating magic, was tricked into nuking the entire continent with it. It is a profoundly bleak history.
It really is. So, okay, if the Vaal vaporized themselves and the Eternals mutated themselves into a cataclysm, who is actually left? If you were walking around Wraeclast today, who survived this cyclical self-destruction?
There are two surviving cultures that are absolutely crucial for you to understand, as they represent opposing reactions to this ruined world. First, we have the Karui.
The Karui, yeah.
These are the native tribes of the Great Archipelago and the coastal regions, like Gama Kanui. Unlike the sprawling, centralized empires that destroyed themselves, the Karui are tribal, decentralized, and deeply tied to ancestry and the physical land.
They were the fierce resistance, right? The Eternals kept trying to encroach on their lands, but the Karui fought them off. There are legendary figures in their history, like King Kam and his niece Queen Hiri, whose conquests against the mainland empires are legendary.
Incredible tacticians.
And this is particularly relevant for you right now because the lore hints heavily that Path of Exile 2 is going to dive really deep into Karui culture. We're supposedly going to visit their actual afterlife, the Halls of the Dead, where these historical icons reside, and we'll see their homeland firsthand.
Which is going to be amazing. The Karui represent a survival built on tradition and martial strength, firmly rejecting the corrupting influence of the mainland's magic.
Right.
But if we look at the other major surviving faction, we see the absolute height of hypocrisy. The youngest civilization in Wraeclast, the Templars of Oriath.
Oh man, the Templars, on paper they live on this tiny, pristine island off the southeast coast. They worship a god of light named Innocence. They project this image of utter purity, godliness, and strict order.
Right.
But the reality of how they maintain that order is incredibly dark.
Yeah, their entire society is structurally dependent on the brutal subjugation of others. Their pristine cities are built on the backs of enslaved Karui and political exiles.
But the dissonance goes far beyond slave labor, doesn't it? The true rot is at the very top of their religious hierarchy.
Exactly. Because the High Templars, the men at the top, like High Templar Dominus, are secretly practicing the exact same forbidden thaumaturgy that they execute people for.
It is the ultimate rules for thee, but not for me. Dominus is knee-deep in virtue gems, following the exact same path as Doriani and Malachai, all while standing at a pulpit telling his followers that magic is a sin that will damn their souls.
He justifies it by claiming divine right, twisting the theology to excuse his own thirst for power. It perfectly illustrates the central theme of Wraeclast, which is that power is fundamentally corrupting.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if you are an ancient queen seeking eternal life, a scientist trying to evolve humanity, or a religious leader claiming purity. The allure of the virtue gems bends everyone's moral compass.
Okay, so that brings us to the elephant in the room, or rather the giant slumbering nightmare in the mountain. We keep talking about these cataclysms, the spread of the corruption, and this entity called the Beast hidden deep inside Mount Veruso.
Yeah.
But where does all of this actually come from? Who put the Beast there?
Well, to understand the Beast, we have to scale all the way back to the cosmic origins of the world. We have to talk about the gods.
Oh, right.
In the ancient days of Wraeclast, mortals actually possessed the ability to ascend. If a mortal garnered enough fervent worshippers and sheer belief from the populace, that collective belief could physically reshape them into bastions of immense power. They became literal gods.
Belief shaping reality, but the cost of that ascension was their humanity, right?
Completely. As they ascended, they lost their mortal empathy, their flaws, and their connection to the human condition. They became massive, detached, and often tyrannical entities. And one of their own, a god named Sin, realized that having a pantheon of completely detached, all-powerful deities treating the world like a chessboard was a recipe for eternal suffering.
So Sin's brilliant plan to stop his immortal peers from being tyrants was to basically build a machine.
He engineered an absolute abomination, a massive flesh and blood failsafe known as the Beast. He buried it deep within Mount Veruso. The Beast's sole function was to act as a cosmic suppressor, like a dampener on divine frequency.
A dampener.
And it was incredibly effective. The sheer weight of its existence forced the vast majority of the gods into a deep, eternal slumber, and it prevented any new mortals from ascending.
I like the analogy of a cosmic mute button for the gods, but the beast wasn't just a silencer, it was an engine, right? And the side effects of that engine are the reason Wraeclast is currently a nightmare.
Yes, and this is the grand mechanical reveal of the universe. The beast absorbed divine energy to keep the gods asleep, but energy has to go somewhere. The beast excreted a byproduct, and that byproduct was thaumaturgy. The sheer force of the beast's existence ripped new magics into the world. It physically generated the virtue gems. The beast is the literal bleeding source of all malformation, darkness, and crystallized corruption on the continent.
It's the source of everything. The magic, the gems, the horrific cataclysms of the Vaal and the Eternals. It all bleeds out of this one sleeping creature.
Yeah.
And the tragic part is that the beast isn't even doing it maliciously. It's not an evil mastermind. It's a machine functioning exactly as it was designed to. Spreading nightmare is just the radioactive runoff of its primary function.
Which sets up one of the most brilliant and devastating climaxes in gaming history. In the original Path of Exile campaign, you, the player, venture into the belly of Mount Veruso. You confront Malachai, who is trying to harness the beast's power, and you kill him.
Right.
And then, thinking you are cutting the head off the snake and saving the world, you slay the beast itself.
You break the machine, but the irony here is just gut-wrenching. You kill the beast. You destroy the cosmic mute button, and what immediately happens? The gods wake up.
Exactly.
All of these powerful, humanityless entities that have been suppressed and dreaming for millennia are suddenly awake, disoriented, and extremely angry.
And you would think that killing the source of thaumaturgy would at least cure the corruption, right?
But it doesn't. The corruption, the magic, the virtue gems, they all stay because over thousands of years, the ecosystem of Wraeclast had fundamentally adapted to that radioactive runoff. The corruption had seeped too deeply into the bedrock.
Right, it's baked into the world now.
So you didn't cure the patient. You just invited a dozen furious deities into the hospital room while the patient is still bleeding out. The cure just added divine wrath to a world already rotting from the inside.
It is a profound cosmic tragedy. You eliminated the suppressor, only to realize the world had become structurally dependent on the poison it produced.
So, as you prepare to step back into this universe, what is the core takeaway here? If we distill all of this history down, Wraeclast is a world defined by a single unbreakable rule. Power always demands a devastating price.
Always.
Whenever someone attempts to play God, whether it's Queen Azmeri seeking eternal youth, the Eternal seeking military dominance, the Templar seeking absolute control, or even the player character seeking to heroically end a nightmare, it almost always triggers an apocalypse.
It is a brutal cycle of hubris.
Yeah.
And understanding that cycle brings us to a highly provocative thought we want to leave you with today.
Oh.
As we look ahead to Path of Exile 2, the lore suggests a fascinating detail about the new primary antagonists.
Yeah.
These new villains are seemingly attempting to reconstruct the very device that suppressed the gods. They're trying to rebuild the beast.
Which, on the surface, sounds completely insane. We just spent this entire deep dive detailing how the beast spawned a world-ending corruption that mutated the continent. Why would anyone want to rebuild the nightmare machine?
But consider the geopolitical reality we've just unpacked. The world right now is currently being torn apart by awakened, furious gods, all because the protagonist of the first game destroyed the original failsafe.
Wow, okay.
Given that chaotic reality, are these new villains actually trying to save the world in their own twisted way?
Oh, that completely flips the script.
Mm.
Are you the villain for trying to build a cage for the gods, even if you know the cage is made of radioactive nightmares? Could the antagonists of the sequel genuinely believe that they are the actual heroes, desperately trying to fix the colossal, catastrophic mistake made by you, the player, in the first game?
It's a heavy question.
It changes everything about who is right and who is wrong, and it proves that when you finally understand the causality of this world, the story becomes so much richer and so much darker. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you on the next one.